Hi and welcome to today's live chapter reading of Tainted by Marsha R. West, courtesy of Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Bam Bam Bam. Liz jerked straight up in bed. What was that? Her heart pounding in her chest like a jackhammer matched the pounding coming from the front of the house. She needed a complete night's sleep, not to deal with some idiot cook beating on her door before the first rays of the sun had crept above the horizon. She rubbed her eyes, gritty with sleep. Where did she leave her eye drops? Her hand scrabbled around on the bedside table. Got 'em. She added drops to one eye and then to the other. Bam, bam, bam. FBI, open up. Dear God, the FBI are here. And why at this ungodly hour of the morning? Liz glanced at her wrist. 5 a.m. What was going on? She stumbled from the bed, slung her yellow robe over her matching pyjamas, and sashed the silk around her waist. On second thought, she snatched herself from the top of the bedside table and removed the revolver from the drawer. Just because someone claimed to be the FBI didn't make them so. When she rose, Charlie, her brown, black, and white long-haired chihuahua, moved into her warm spot. Big help you are. She slid the phone in her robe pocket, closed the door, leaving him safely inside her bedroom, and hurried towards the commotion at the front of her home where the pounding continued. She paused in the entry. Who's there? FBI, now open the door before we break it down. Okay, wait a minute. She moved towards the door, but they must not have heard her, or she wasn't fast enough. Before her outstretched hand connected to the knob, the door burst in, knocking her off her feet. The alarm system squealed. Her gun went flying. Gun, 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 yelled one of the men. Stay down. Are you Elizabeth Richardson? A big man in a flak jacket with the letters FBI on the front pointed the biggest gun she'd ever seen right at her. Pain shot up from her hip where she'd landed, taking her breath and making it difficult to respond. Dragging air into her lungs, she squeaked out, Yes, Liz Hartman, not Richardson anymore. Why are you here? What's this about? Her gaze followed several agents rushing from the entryway to other parts of her house. The agent picked up her weapon. Is this yours? Do you have a license for this? Do you always answer the door holding a gun? Who are you? Can you help me up? And my dog is in my bedroom. Please don't let anyone hurt him. I'm Special Agent Jim Roberts, ma'am. He held out a folio showing her his credentials. We've obtained a warrant to search your house. He paused, his eyes squinting. Did you hurt yourself when you fell? I'm not sure. If you help me up, we'll see. He reached out his hand and Liz gripped it. As she struggled upright, moans escaped before she could stop them, until she stood on her own 2 feet, encased in her fluffy house shoes. Fierce yapping preceded Charlie flying into the small entryway where he circled the agent's feet. The other agents must have opened her bedroom door and let him free. Call off your dog, ma'am. The agent did a dance trying to avoid the dog's teeth. And will you shut off the damn alarm? For the first time, Liz smiled. This big old FBI agent seemed to be more than a little intimidated by her sweet boy. Come, Charlie. She reached down and he leapt up into her arms, panting, with his little pink tongue hanging out. She reached around the agent and shut off the maddening sound. May I sit? Her legs trembled and her left hip throbbed with an uncomfortable feeling. Yes. She limped to the bench with storage baskets underneath and dropped down. Can you tell me what this is all about? She threaded shaking fingers through Charlie's hair, trying to catch her breath, ignore the pain and gain her composure. None of this made any sense. We believe your husband Jerry Richardson left papers here that will help in our money laundering case against him. Ex-husband, Special Agent. You couldn't first ask to come in and search. You had to burst in practically in the middle of the night. She ran a hand through her short hair, bed hair not her best look. 5 a.m. is hardly the middle of the night. We'd gotten a tip he'd stashed documents here relating to his business relationships. But we've been divorced for almost a year. She started proceedings when the FBI arrested him. Because he'd been caught up defending himself, he'd let the divorce go through faster than one would otherwise expect. Liz was grateful. He's been in the house at times during the course of that year, isn't that correct? Robert's pencil poised above a notepad. Liz thought for a moment. Yes, he visited here with our children around each of their birthdays. And I presume you left him alone during those visits? I don't remember exactly, but possibly. Liz ran another hand through her hair, scraping the strands into a semblance of order. Dear God, wouldn't this trouble Jerry had caused ever end? She thought she'd be out of the nightmare after the divorce, but apparently not, since the FBI stood in her entryway at the crack of dawn. Ruff, ruff! Charlie barked at the agents returning from scouring her comfortable home. She cuddled him close, comforting them both. Special Agent Roberts, I think we've found the evidence. A woman handed over an envelope. The document appears to be a bunch of passwords and codes. Special Agent Roberts flicked through several sheets. A smile touched his lips. Good work. He returned them to the woman. Mrs. Richardson will. It's Miss Hartman, Special Agent Roberts, and has been since the divorce was finalised. He nodded. Yes, ma'am, Miss Hartman. We'll need you to come downtown to our office. Supervisory Special Agent Tim Stringer would like to visit with you. I'd like to dress first and call my lawyer if you don't mind. Of course. I'll leave someone to follow you to the office. 8:30 work for you? She nodded. And before she knew what happened, and with as much as of a whirl as at their entrance, they whooshed out, and Liz found herself sitting alone at the front door with her pup on her lap. Had she awakened from a terrible nightmare that had caused her to sleepwalk? The ache in her hip contradicted that possibility. Come on, Charlie. It's early, but I'll fix your breakfast. She cautiously stood, set him down, and he scurried ahead of her as she limped towards the kitchen, pressing her hand on her painful hip. Being early didn't matter to Charlie at all, but if she fed him late, he'd give her a hard time. Liz removed her cell phone from the pocket of her robe and punched in Patty's number. Her long-time friend, Patty Berner's law degree had proved itself worth every penny Patty had spent to earn. Certainly from Liz's standpoint. Patty had seen her through complexities of a difficult divorce. Liz gave the big house on Crestline to Jerry, but ended up with more than enough money to live comfortably. Her plan had been to continue her volunteer charity work and her paid work as a fundraiser for the local Alzheimer's Association and Red Cross. She moved into this craftsman in the Berkeley area of Fort Worth after a major remodel. Their daughter's college tuition was also covered. A real blessing. She pitied the women who got divorced when their spouses and the legal system left them practically penniless, not sure how they managed. Patty's sleepy voice came on the line. Isn't this early for you? What's up? The FBI left my house minutes ago. The sleep left Patty's voice and she morphed into super lawyer. Tell me. Liz recounted the morning's events with only a hint of tear in her voice. But you're okay. Charlie's okay. I'd like to climb into the hot tub for a soak later today if they don't arrest me. In the meantime, I'll grab a couple of ibuprofen for my hip. But yeah, I'm okay. Can you meet me downtown at 8:30 this morning? I don't want to talk with Supervisory Special Agent Stringer alone. Of course. Glad you've earned a few tricks from me. Even innocent people should avoid speaking with law enforcement officers of any branch without representation. I've got to shuffle 2 meetings on my calendar, but I'll meet you at the Federal Building. Liz disconnected, feeling drained. She needed coffee in the worst way, but first she opened Charlie's doggy door to let him out back to do his business after his meal. Usually she walked him, but today she guessed that the agent stationed out front wouldn't appreciate Charlie's routine. What in the world must her neighbours think? Thank heavens for the little instant coffee pause. In only moments she sipped strong black brew with a hint of hazelnut. Yes. She pulled the box of frozen waffles from the refrigerator and popped one in the toaster. Peanut butter and jelly on the Belgian lusciousness would give her an extra spark of energy to carry on. Settling at the glass table in the bay window, she munched on the waffle and watched Charlie search out any new smells since he'd last been out there. his long hair ruffled in a slight breeze. In a few moments, Charlie's nose poked through his doggy door, followed by his tail wagging at Liz. After finishing her waffle, she made another cup of coffee. She'd get through this ordeal. She was determined to get through. Liz pulled herself from her robe pocket and searched for her handyman who could fix anything. She needed him to work on that front door and put in a new lock. Not how she'd planned to spend her morning. Pleased he could come immediately, she disconnected and wobbled down the hall to her large master bedroom and a wonderful ensuite. How did people exist before they were invented? She might have downsized from the 5,000 square feet house she'd shared on the Crestline with Jerry, and where their kids had spent their middle and high school years, to this 2,200 square feet home in Berkeley. But she'd created a sanctuary in her bathroom. Regardless of the size, the bathroom had to be perfect, and she reached satisfaction with cream-coloured tiles accented with shades of blue-green. No time for a luxurious bath with the warm water soothing her aching hip. Hopefully later today. Now she only had time to hop in and out of the clear glass enclosed shower with the floor of pebbles. The soft water rained down on her, doing its best to take away the stress. The lavender scent of the soap bubbles of her body wash refreshed her. Still, she found it hard to grasp what happened to her in the early morning hours. She recently concluded she could safely say her life had reached a form of normalcy. Wishful thinking, obviously, to believe normalcy existed after the FBI arrested Jerry on money laundering charges. Maybe she wouldn't find anything normal ever again. A long moan escaped. What a depressing thought. Life had to improve, didn't it? Nighttime FBI raids surely must be part of her past. Dressed in a light green spring suit with a long-sleeve jacket, a coordinated yellow blouse, and her comfortable but stylish beige pumps, Liz felt prepared for the ordeal ahead. She steered her car towards downtown Fort Worth and the FBI offices on Taylor Street, with the black SUV following along behind her. After parking, the female agent, dressed in ubiquitous black slacks and jacket, led her inside and to the elevator. They got off on the 5th floor and walked through a door into a small reception area. Wait here. Supervisory Special Agent Stringer will be with you in a few moments. She left Liz sitting on a hard wooden bench. The hallway door opened. Hey, how you doing? Patty Bernard entered, dressed in a black skirted suit with a signature burgundy silk blouse, her uniform for court, and her brunette hair stylishly short. She probably had an appearance later in the day. Thank you for coming. Liz rose and gathered her friend in a heartfelt hug. Gratitude for the woman's friendship and legal skills filled Liz's heart. Patty had walked by her side throughout this whole nightmare. Liz needed her life to become normal. She breathed a prayer that she would indeed gain an ordinary life once again. An office door opened and Supervisory Special Agent Stringer stepped out. Please come in, Miss Hartman. How are you, Miss Bernard? They took the seats he indicated in front of his desk, and he sat and folded his hands on top of a file on the desk. Why is my client here, Special Agent Stringer? Patty jumped in, not giving the agent a chance to go after her client. You know we applied for the innocent spouse defence, and that's been granted. My client had no knowledge of her husband's illegal activities. I'm aware of that, Miss Bernard. However, I personally find it hard to believe your client, married to the man for 25 years, didn't have a clue he laundered Larry Nelson's gambling money through Richardson's nationwide stake chain. But that is the correct situation, Special Agent. I don't appreciate you harassing her with this early morning raid. It wasn't a raid, Miss Bernard. Agent Roberts and his team merely served a warrant. He leaned back and crossed his arms over his chest. Being roused from bed at 5 a.m. with your front door being busted open feels like a raid to most law-abiding citizens. The agents found what we'd been tipped off they'd found, so we're still interested in Miss Hartman. He leaned forward, glaring at Liz. She sat up straighter. One of the lessons she'd learned since the arrest of her husband. Don't give the authorities an inch. Special Agent Stringer, Patty directed his attention. I must be in court in an hour and a half. You've got 1 hour, not a minute more. If you've got questions, let's begin, shall we? Liz veered into her driveway. Her handyman had finished repairing her front door. He'd arrived before she left, alleviating her worry about the pup getting out before she returned. The FBI wouldn't have thought too highly of her taking Charlie along to their offices. After she left, the workman had stayed to do a complete job. "Hey, Miss Hartman," he spoke as she climbed from the car. "You've arrived at the perfect time to set up a code for your door lock. I assume you don't want to use the old one." "You're right, Joey. Do you need me to remind you how to change the standard one that's in now?" "I remember how to set the combination. With all the workmen coming in and out during the remodel, I changed the number often." She punched in several keys and yet set a new code. "There, that's done." She faced the worker. "Thank you for handling this in such short notice, Joey. I couldn't stay here without a locking front door." "No, ma'am." "Will you send me the bill?" "Yes, ma'am, and you're welcome." He strode to his truck parked in the street. Liz unlocked and relocked her front door. She found Charlie curled up in a box in her closet, his safety net when stressed. She needed a box like that. He hopped out, wagging his tail in greeting. Liz ambled toward the kitchen with his nails scratching on the wooden floor behind her. She popped a paw in her coffee maker, gazing out to her backyard while she waited. With a cup in hand, she settled at the glass table, letting the view of all the greenery revive her. She did have a safety box like Charlie's, in Red River, New Mexico. Well, not exactly hers. The box belonged to her mother, a lovely house by the river on the edge of town that her parents took the family to, and where they spent the whole summer. Her father had been gone for 8 years, and her mother had remarried several years ago, but the house was still there. While Liz loved her new downsized house and looked forward to creating new memories here, maybe what she needed was a total break from Fort Worth and all the bad stuff associated with being the former Mrs. Jerry Richardson. Taking her maiden name back after the divorce helped give her perspective and space. Her daughter Lauren wanted to change her name too. The constant questions of, "Oh, are you related to that money launderer guy?" got old the first time she heard someone ask. The end of May, Lauren would complete her sophomore year in college. Spending the entire summer in Red River would be great. Could they make that happen? The perfect weather in Red River during the summer drew many visitors, certainly an improvement over the Texas summers became. They deserved the break. Rich, their 24-year-old son, worked in the family restaurant business. He told her he didn't know what his dad did, but she hated to doubt him. That made her no any better than Agent Stringer doubting her denial of knowledge in the crime. Her brain sorted through all the tasks that needed doing for Lauren and her to leave. At the top of the list, she listed Patty Bernard's name. She needed her lawyer's help to make sure Supervisor Agent Stringer didn't attempt to stop her.